Hey everyone, Cahlen here, and in a recent video I talked a little bit about smartphone security, and I mentioned the possibility of someone using a Linux smartphone. So the reason you might want to use a Linux smartphone comes down to the fact that no matter what software you install, unlike a de-googled Android phone, the hardware, the radio itself that talks with the cell towers has its own separate computer and its own operating system, which is able to communicate with the towers without your permission, and is also able to read everything that's in the memory of your phone at any time, even if you're totally secure. That is basically a backdoor into everything that's going on, no matter what software you have running. So the only way to fix that is to get a situation where the phone you're using doesn't have direct access to the RAM, which is true with the Pinephone, and also the ability to totally turn off the radio completely, make it so it is not getting power. Now, if you have a phone which you can remove the battery, then you can do that, but then you can't use the phone, and so that's kind of the main reason why the smartphone, the Pinephone, is maybe what you're looking for here, because in the back of the phone you can turn off there's a little circuit board, and you can turn off the power to the radio, to the Wi-Fi separately, to the camera, to the microphone, and to the headphone port. So that's a really important feature, and it's why when things get really bad, I'm not going to be using my smartphone. Even though it is the most secure Graphene OS smartphone, it's not totally secure for when it's coming down to life and death, and people may come looking for people and taking them away to do whatever. Who knows, right? Okay, so I'm going to basically give you a download of what I think about the Pinephone. First, I want to say, if you're someone who is not technically inclined and you have difficulty with smartphones already, with an iPhone or an Android phone, then you're probably not going to be able to handle this. This is going to be a little difficult, right? You're going to have to learn a little bit of Linux, probably, which a lot of people aren't familiar with. But I think most people who are technically inclined will not have difficulty figuring out those things. You'll probably have fun figuring that out. And it is possible to set this up pretty easily, that'll give you all the functionality, a lot of the functionality that you're used to with the smartphone. Okay, so one thing that you should know is you're probably not going to get the video camera working. Now, I have gotten the video camera working, but it was very difficult and it's very awkward. And basically, I wouldn't recommend that path for anyone. So I'd say just accept that you're not going to have video, and you may not have multimedia or group MMS, text messages. You'll be able to text with people if you're using SIM card in this thing. You'll be able to text with people, you'll be able to make calls with people, and you're going to be able to use the data plan. I've never put a SIM in this thing. I run it only on Wi-Fi, so you can do that. I just keep the radio physically turned off in the back. And another thing is that it's going to be a little bit slow. If you get the low-end Pinephone, which I think is about $150 new, it only has 2 gigs of RAM, and it has only a small amount of storage space in the back. I mean, in the actual, like the hard drive, for example, is not very big. So you're going to install the operating system on there, and then if you want to store files like media and stuff like that, you're probably going to want to put an SD card in here. I have a 256 gigabyte SD card in here, which I store all my files on, which is nice because if anything happens to this phone, I can just take that chip out, that SD card out, and put it into another phone. I can even put it into my other Android phones, into any computer, and access that information. So let's look at the hardware for a second here. So basically, it's just a basic phone. It's got the camera on the back. It's got the ear speaker for when you're talking. It's got a microphone down here. It's got the bigger speakers for when you're like listening to music in the back here, and of course it's got the back camera. Mine was gifted to me. I don't know exactly what it comes with, but if you buy it new, but I assume all of this is what it comes with. So it came with a screen protector on it. You can buy extra screen protectors. You basically have to look it up. It's one of the iPhones, I think, one of the Apple phones, which has a screen protector which fits it perfectly. And it came like this. This is not the one I'm talking about, but I have a set of 3 other protectors for, I plan to use this for a long period of time, many, many years. And so the screen protector will probably take damage, so I want to be able to replace that. So I've got some backups. I've also got a backup battery. It uses one of the Samsung phone's batteries. You'll have to look this up again. I think it's the J7. So basically, you would just buy a J7 battery, maybe a couple of them, and then When the battery in here gets bad after a couple of years, then you'll be able to use that other battery, or you can keep 2 batteries charged at once so that you can just swap them in and out. Okay, so it comes with also a case protector. This thing is a little bit difficult to come off. You can see it's got this thing. You basically just, let's see if I can do this. It's hard to do it on camera, sorry. Okay, so here's the protector, here's the phone, and then it also has, there's this little thing right here where you can stick your fingernail in and take off the case. So there's the actual case, and here's the back of the phone now. Okay, so here's the battery, and the phone came with a battery that's marked as Pinephone, but this is actually a battery for the J7, I think, or the J6 or something like that. And this is just a small little battery. Sometimes you can get bigger batteries that have more storage, but you're probably not going to be able to do that with this phone because those usually come with an extra case which is actually bigger so that it will hold the battery in. You're not going to find anyone doing that for a Pinephone at the moment, and probably never. Okay, so then here's this is the part that you can replace right here. This is where the RAM is, this is where the storage is. I think that's it. I think maybe this, basically you can think of this as kind of the motherboard. I'm not totally sure about the specifics of this, but you can swap this out to a 3 GB RAM and to a much more storage space, but you know, it's going to cost you a lot. You may want to just buy the Pinephone that has that if that's what you want. Here's where the SD card goes, and the SIM card goes underneath there. And then here is the, let's see if we can get it to focus. Here's the circuit board. Here's a list. It lists all what the different things do. You can see that number 1 is down and all the rest of them are up. Number 1 is the modem, which is also the GPS. By the way, the GPS does not work if you don't have a SIM card. That's another thing that you should know about. So if you want to be able to use GPS, like maps and stuff like that, with this phone, you're going to need to have the SIM card, and you're going to need to have this circuit board on. So if you need to be able to use the phone with GPS to get around and you don't plan on using the SIM card, this isn't going to work for you. So basically what I have for GPS is I have a LG V20 smartphone, which the radio got broken somehow, but the GPS still works, and so I basically have a GPS device in that thing. So again, that may be a difficult thing for most people to acquire because I don't know how I broke the radio. I'm just lucky that I did. So anyways, let's see what else. So I'll read to you the various things on this list here, just so you know. So it's modem and, of course, the GPS. 2 is the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth together. Then there's the microphone, the rear camera, the front camera, and the headphones. There's also this little thing which allows you to add various features like a external keyboard that fits into the case. It's like a case that folds on, and you got a little keyboard here, so I think it connects to this thing. You can also add a fingerprint scanner, but I would never recommend using something like that. Other features. This is just another way to connect to the phone. And then of course there's the USB-C port right there. Okay, so I'm going to turn on the phone and show you kind of the boot up process. I'm going to hold it down. It vibrates, a little red light comes on. So this says Post-Market OS. That is the operating system. It's basically a version of Linux. Linux has lots of different versions, and the Pinephone has a few different versions of Linux that it can run. Post-Market OS is the one that I like the most because it's way faster. It's a way cleaner installation, and you'll notice the difference. Like if you're running something else, the other operating system I would recommend is Mobian, which is a little more user-friendly. The App Store works. If you open the App Store, it's going to list all kinds of different apps that are going to run your phone, and you can install them and uninstall them and get information of them from there. The App Store is on this phone, but it doesn't have any repositories, which is just a database of apps that it runs. So you're going to have to, you can add repositories if you know how to do that, find the repositories that you want, or you can just install applications that you want using the Linux command line, right? And which I'm very familiar with, and so I'm perfectly happy to do that. But if that's not something you want to do, then I'm going to recommend that you use Mobian instead. So it's first thing it's going to take me to is the decryption thing. So basically the hard drive is encrypted, and in order for it to be read and used, it has to have the password that I've entered for the encryption. Now this password is different than my user password. So basically I'm just going to enter that in, And now it's basically decrypting the phone and getting ready to boot it up. So now it says Post-Market OS loading. Okay, now it's booted up. You can see this is just the lock screen. You're probably used to something similar like this when you're on a smartphone. You just swipe up and then it takes you to the keypad, and I'm going to enter in my password. And now it's basically going to take me to, this is the home screen. The home screen just lists all of the different apps that you can use. So what's going on here? Oh, I set an alarm. Okay, so basically here's all the apps. There's lots of different apps, and basically this thing can run any Linux application. You know, with the caveat that it's not a very strong application, so if you want to use like a really high level video editing or image editing program, it's going to run really slow, and also it's going to be on a tiny little screen here, which is going to be pretty much impossible for you to use with your fingers for that type of thing, because the application wasn't built to be on such a small screen. And so you would need like a Bluetooth mouse, which I have for such instances. You can also plug this in via USB-C to a converter, which turns it into HDMI, and you can plug it into a monitor, right? So this is basically a little computer. It's a little Linux computer in your pocket. So anyways, what else should I tell you about this? So a lot of the apps that come on it already are going to be the apps that you're going to want to use. For example, here's Firefox, which is a web browser. Now there are other web browsers that you can install in here. Chromium, for example, which is like an open source version of Chrome. It's kind of similar to how Android de-googled. It's like de-googled Android, right? So Chrome is like a googled Chromium. There's the Chromium project, which is open source Chrome, the browser. And Google has put proprietary stuff in there which you can't see, but if you're using Chromium, you don't have any of that. Just like with a de-googled phone, you don't have any of the Google stuff. And you can install it on here, but it's not perfectly designed to run on a screen this size. And so basically, I'd say just use the Firefox, which is already installed on there. So, and also it comes with a phone, so you can make calls. You can use voice over IP, or you can use your SIM card. Again, I don't have a SIM card in here, so I use voice over IP. I have a voice over IP account, which I can receive calls and make calls on, and also I can receive and send text messages, which get sent to my email address. So I just use the email application to text people, but it does have a text application called Chats right there, which you can send text with. Again, the multimedia text and maybe group text aren't going to work so good. So anyways, there's the operating systems, and the two that I would recommend are either Post-Market OS, which I most highly recommend, and if you want something more user-friendly, a little bit more user-friendly, than Mobian. They both run the same user interface. So there's the Linux operating system, and then there's the user interface, which is the thing that you're looking at here, right? And there's multiple versions of that. So for Mobian, you can use, it's called Phosh, P-H-O-S-H, and Mobian, I think, has another option. I'm not sure what that other option is. I have used it. I've used all the options. I don't remember their names. And the only ones I really liked was Phosh. Phosh also runs on Post-Market OS, which is what I'm running here. And so it'll look the same. Mobian and Post-Market OS are going to look the same if you install it with the Phosh user interface. Now, there's two other user interfaces for this. I think it's the other one. One of them is the same one, the other alternative that you can get on Mobian. And then it also has another one, which is like XMMO, which is like highly advanced, but very simple. And actually, if you master it, it's a really good operating system, but I just decided not to do that. Another cool feature, which I don't use, but you can use, is installing an application called Waydroid, which basically installs Lineage OS, which is a de-googled version of Android, onto the phone, and it runs at the same time as this. And basically it'll add, you can install any Android app to that, and basically that app will show up in this list, and you'll be able to use it just like you would with an Android phone. Now, if it's a camera app, it's not going to be able to access the camera. There's various issues. So if it wants to access certain types of hardware on your phone, it's kind of hit or miss right there. And also, if you're running Waydroid, your phone's going to be way slowed down, right? This thing's super snappy, but if I have Waydroid running, then it's like taking up like 3/4 of the resources of this phone, so it's going to be hard to do anything else. Okay, so well, let's talk about first which Pinephone you should get. There's actually 3 that you can choose from at the moment. You can get this one. This is the lowest end Pinephone. It comes with 2 gigabytes of RAM and maybe 16 gigs of storage, something like that. So it's fairly slow. You can get this same phone which has the upgraded hardware that you can replace back here already in it, so it'll have 3 gigabytes and then quite a bit more storage. Or you can get what has come out recently within the last maybe 6 months or so, which is the Pinephone Pro, which is a much more advanced hardware-wise, but it's running the same software. So all the software issues that we're going to have on this phone is going to exist on the Pinephone Pro, and actually the Pinephone Pro is going to have more issues, such as the camera not yet working, because when this hardware comes out, the people who make this hardware aren't the ones who make the software. So the hardware has to come out, and then the open source community has to actually adapt all the software to work with it. So if you do want something more powerful, the Pinephone Pro, it's much more expensive. It will run much more intense applications, but there's going to be certain things that aren't going to work yet that you're going to have to wait a certain period of time. And sometimes that period of time can be years. Like, for example, this thing's been out for a couple of years and still the video camera doesn't work. It is possible to get the camera working and even integrate it into a nice camera application, but no one has done it yet. And I don't know how to do it. And so it's just like, maybe someone will have the spare time and the motivation to do that, but they're not getting paid for it. So, who knows? Okay, so when you actually get your phone, it's going to come installed with a specific operating system, which is not one of the ones I've mentioned here. And I don't even remember the name, but I can tell you I didn't like it. And so basically I would say you probably can make that work, whatever it is. If you're not technically inclined, you don't want to go through all these steps, you may be able to get all of that stuff to work for what you need. But if you want one of the operating systems that I recommend here, you're going to need to do a couple of things. So first, you're going to have to connect this to your computer. You're going to have to install something called Towboot, T-O-W-B-O-O-T, which is basically just some back-end software which allows you to install different operating systems really easy from an SD card. There will be instructions. Just go to search for Towboot. You'll find instructions on how to do that. It's not really too difficult. Once you have Towboot installed, you're going to want to get an SD card, and you're going to go to the website of the operating system that you want, like Mobian or Postmarket OS. You go to the download section, find the latest version, pick the one that says installer at the end. There's going to be 2 versions. You want the one that says installer. You're going to basically burn that disk image to the SD card, and then when you put the SD card into the phone and you turn it on, Towboot is automatically going to boot from that SD card, and it's going to be an installer. So it's going to walk you through a process of installing. That's where you'll put in your encryption key, you'll put in the password for your user, and all those types of things. So that's the basic rundown of the Pinephone. I am happy with it, but again, I do everything on my smartphone. I am a minimalist. I live outdoors. I need my computer to be very small. I don't have a laptop or anything like that. So I do everything on my smartphone, including recording and editing videos, and currently I can't do that very well on this phone. And so basically I'm still using my Android smartphone, but when things get bad, that won't be the case anymore. This will be the only thing that I'll be carrying with me. And in that point where I don't want to be detected by anything, by giving out any radio signals at all, I will have the radio and GPS turned off, and I'll probably turn off the Wi-Fi as well, and Bluetooth. It doesn't broadcast as far, but they probably have very powerful sensing technologies that even if your phone is every once in a while sending out a signal looking for a Wi-Fi router, that they'll be able to find you if they're close enough. So you'd want both of those things turned off, except when you're using Wi-Fi or if you desperately need to connect to a cell tower or use GPS. So for de-Googled phones, I have in the past, people send me the phones that they want me to de-Google, and I set it up for them and send it back to them. They don't want to do that process themselves. It is fairly easy to install Graphene OS on a Pixel phone, but some people don't want to do that. So they'll buy a used phone, they'll send it to me, I'll set it up, and I'll send it to them. Basically, I just ask that you give me a donation for that service. Most people pay about $100 for that, but whatever feels right to you. So basically I need at least enough to send it back to you ideally, and setting up a Pinephone, I'm willing to do the same thing. It is a little bit of an intensive process, much more intensive than setting up a smartphone, but I am willing to do that if people really want that. So I don't sell phones, so basically you would need to order a Pinephone, and either from, I think they're in stock right now just from, I think it's Pine64. If you search pinephone64.com or .org or something like that, you can order it directly from them and they'll ship it to you within a couple of weeks. And you can either ship it to me from yourself or you can have them send it to me. Just make sure I know that it's coming. And then I'll set it up with the operating system that you want and the features that you want, and then I will send it to you. So just get in touch with me if that's something you want. I also can coach people on how to use these things when you're ready to get, I guess you may need coaching for even some of the more basic stuff, to be honest, but when you're ready to get more advanced, advanced Linux type things going on, like how to set it up so that it's running a VPN, which launches by default when the phone turns on and and all applications go through it, which is an important feature. I can help you with that type of stuff as well. So just get in touch if that's something you're interested in. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please consider sharing it. If you'd like to help me out in a more substantial way, you can learn how to do so at cahlen.org/gift. And if you'd like to have a one-on-one conversation with me, whether publicly or privately, you can learn how to do so at cahlen.org/one-on-one. Thanks again for watching.